Invermere. It's home to just under 3,400 people. That is until summer when the population balloons. Located on the shores of Lake Windermere, the area is a hit with beach-seeking summer tourists and those looking to escape the hustle and bustle of the city. In winter months, it's home to the White Way, which at more than 29 kilometres long is recognised by Guinness World Records as the longest ice skating path in the world. Welcome to Where You Live from the Pine Logs Cultural Centre in Invermere. Our first guest today is reporter-editor from the Columbia Valley Pioneer, Steve Hubrecht. Steve, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, pleasure too.
Now, Steve, you're not born and raised here. Where did you come from and how did you end up in Invermere?
Originally grew up in Ontario, lived quite a while in Fernie. That's where I met my wife. She's a teacher, so we ended up spending a few years in China. Came back from China and a job at the newspaper in Invermere came up, and we couldn't believe our luck to have left one part of the Kootenays and be able to move back to another.
I guess you couldn't really get much of a difference between China and Invermere. What was that transition like?
It was a dramatic difference. First of all, going from Fernie to Beijing, a small mountain town of 5,000 people, to a city of 15 million. It was quite a shock for us at first, but we adjusted and we enjoyed our time there, but really happy to be able to come back to the Kootenay.
And as mentioned, you're a reporter-editor for the Columbia Valley Pioneer. What has that job done for you in terms of getting to know the town and getting to know the ins and outs and the people around?
It's a really unique role. You really get insight into the community in a way that other jobs often don't allow. You feel that you get to know the community more intimately in ways both positive and sometimes negative. You see the warts and the smiles a little bit more intensely than most other people do.
Anything interesting that you've learned along the way?
No end of interest. It's a really dynamic town. I mean, there's for a town of just over 3,000, there's actually quite a lot going on in Invermere.
Now, if you could describe this town in one sentence, how would you do that?
One sentence.
Don't think about it too hard.
If you were to boil it down to one word, it would really be lifestyle. I mean, that's ultimately why most people are here, whether it's the lake or the mountains or the local art scene or just the more relaxed pace of life that we tend to have here. It's most people are here for the lifestyle. Most people stay here because of the lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. And in a lot of small towns, you see a lot of community pride in the area. Do you see that here as well?
Well, absolutely. It's almost overwhelming sometimes. I mean, because of all the different lifestyle amenities, the beach, the lake, the mountains, and all the stuff that you can do here, you tend to attract people to the community that have a different mindset than people would in a big city. You get people that are interested in doing more than their life than just, the typical ABC lifestyle, have a career, house in the suburbs, kids, and finish. And that spirit or feeling really translates into an exceptionally strong volunteer community, for instance. And so you see things kind of like, like the art, like here we are in Pine Logs. It's one of, I think, 5 galleries that we have right in downtown. And they're not small galleries, they're big, and they get big artists that from all over the country that show in them, and that's not common for a town of 3,000 people. Or things like the White Way out on the lake outside, the very fact that we have the Guinness World Record longest ice skating trail on a lake right here in this town of 3,000 people is pretty phenomenal, and it came about because of a sustained and dedicated volunteer effort over a number of winters to get it established. Mm-hmm.
And we'll just go back to the beginning of what you talked about. You talked about the people and the reason that they move here, and that's part of the reason why there's such a strong community pride. Do you fit into that category, or was it merely just an opportunity, a job opportunity, or was the location part of the draw for you?
The location was definitely part of a draw. When we first came back from China, we were a few months in Ontario, where both my wife and I are originally from. And we were initially looking at work there just because the opportunities there are so much more numerous than they are, in small rural BC. But when we saw the job opportunity in Invermere, it was like, wow, we'll apply to jobs in Ontario and Invermere, and that was the one that I got. So.
This was the number one on the priority list.
Yeah, just because it offers that extra, you can from my house, 5 minutes to the beach, 5 minutes to walk to the downtown, mountains all around, all the fresh air you could want, the White Way, the wetlands, it's all right there.
And you have a couple of kids. What was the transition like for them coming from Beijing, and what's it like here to raise kids?
It's a great place to raise kids. Our kids are both born here in Invermere, okay. So we didn't have them when we came from China. They're both born actually right in the Invermere Hospital. And but in general, the Invermere and the Columbia Valley is a fantastic place to have kids. You couldn't ask for a better place to raise them. I feel like you get all the benefits of a small town, of a rural area, in addition to most of the benefits you would get in a larger urban center. I myself grew up on a farm, pretty rural area, so I know all the benefits and I like them, but there's also limitations. So my wife grew up closer to Toronto, all the different opportunities you get as a kid there, like in terms of sports or extracurriculars or stuff that you're just exposed to. I kind of didn't have that growing up on a farm, but here it's our kids live in a small town. They know most of the people they meet on a regular basis. It's really fun and friendly that way. But if they want to get into gymnastics, there's a great gymnastics program. If they're artistically inclined, no problem. There's tons of stuff for them here. Music, sports, they can do all that here and still have the benefits of a small town. And that's pretty unique.
It's a very popular place, and it changes a lot. The dynamic of the town changes a lot between winter and summer, doesn't it? There's a lot more, like an influx of a lot more Albertans coming in summer. Yeah,
definitely the summer is our busiest season by far. Supposedly the population of the entire valley, all communities, is about 7,000 or 8,000, and that swells to almost 40,000 in peak weekends in the summer. So you notice that, and you do notice actually a bit of a swell in the Christmas through March break, kind of with the winter activities. So it is a drastic change.
Do you enjoy that transition, or is it a little bit? Do you enjoy the quieter times, or obviously the summer's a lovely time to be around here, but is the hectic pace a little bit too much?
Sometimes it seems. I mean, you get to the point where people actually complain about the traffic in Invermere, which is ridiculous. And what they're complaining about then is that they have to kind of go up on 10th to get around downtown. It takes an extra 2 minutes, maybe. Yeah. But when you're used to there is no traffic at all, and then all of a sudden there is a bit of a jam. It
has to be. I guess you have to put it in perspective a little bit, don't you?
Yeah, I mean it's nothing compared to Beijing or Calgary.
So what do you enjoy doing most in your spare time around here?
With kids, young kids, while our oldest is 3, our youngest is 1, we do spend a lot of time not going too far from home these days. And thankfully, there's a lot really close to home. We spend a lot of time at the beach here. I mean, most Sundays this past winter, we spent just walking along the White Way. Our kids are too young to skate, but you just go out, you take a little picnic, the sun's shining, people are promenading on their skates. It's really nice.
And has the valley hooked you? Is this kind of where you want to settle now with your kids?
I would love to stay here full time. There is the flip side of that in a community like this, the jobs are limited, and I'd have a job in a newspaper. It's not the kind of job that you could maybe work your whole career and retire on. And my wife, she's a teacher, but she's year-to-year contract. So we would like the future to be here. We don't know for sure. I mean, and that's a challenge a lot of young families here have, and in their franker moments, that the politicians here will admit to that it is not an easy place to keep young families, because a lot of times the jobs just aren't here. But as much as we can, we want to stay here. I mean, we bought a house here, so we're as committed as we can possibly get.
Awesome. All right, Steve, well, thanks so much for joining us on Where You Live.
No worries.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Stick around, we've got more coming up after the break.